Done properly, developing a performance assessment program can be a powerful tool for improving organizational performance. Before we jump into the design of the program itself, it's important to understand that performance is not necessarily the same thing as performance measurement. Although we may try to remove as much subjectivity from the program as possible, there's always going to be some level of imperfection in our measurement. As we look at how to design the program, there are three main categories that all of the models and all the researchers recommend we take a look at. The first is effectiveness, which is an assessment of the quality of the worker's output. How well do they do what it is that they were tasked to do in their specific role in the organization? The second category is efficiency, which refers to the efficient use of resources in order to get the job done. And the third and often misunderstood dynamic is called utility, which is an assessment of how well or how much the worker's output is actually valued by the organization itself. As we develop performance standards, it is important to make sure that they meet several criteria. The first is they must be clearly communicated, and objective. But something else we also want to consider is you want to make sure that your performance measurements at the individual level, to the degree practical, are in fact controllable at the individual level. It is not really fair to have performance measurements which have a lot of elements that are outside of the person's control. Something else that you want to consider when designing a program is you want to make sure that you are getting consistent ratings across different raters. You don't want manager A to have an average of 5 and manager B has an average of 8 on a 10-point scale. You want to make sure that the program is designed as such and has the training for all of your raters such that you're going to get rather consistent results no matter who is doing the rating. Another thing that I would recommend that more and more organizations are doing is they're actually moving away from the annual review process, and instead they're using a more frequent cadence of feedback such that if someone is not on track with their performance targets, they should know about that much earlier than an annual review period such that proper corrective action can be taken much earlier in the year. Other things that you want to consider when designing a performance assessment program include what are the behaviors that you're reinforcing with your performance measurements. Are your performance measurements incentivizing people to exhibit the right behaviors, or are we actually unintentionally incentivizing the wrong behaviors? I'll give you a quick example from my organization. I work in manufacturing. Years ago, we had a plant manager who was achieving their cost savings targets by not doing the necessary maintenance on their plant equipment each month. So although in the short term, this person looked great on certain performance measurements, however, over time, the neglect of the equipment resulted in performance degradation, which resulted in production shortfalls and ultimately delays in customer shipments. So we always want to be mindful, what are the short-term and long-term behaviors that we are incentivizing with our performance measurement system. But I would consider one of the most important elements is being able to help people to accurately and honestly understand their own performance. In most Western cultures, we tend to have what is called a leniency bias. That is, we tend to evaluate our own performance at a higher degree than someone else or even what objective standards would substantiate. So being able to help people develop goals and understand how are they actually doing according to those goals, honestly, is a critical component of a properly designed performance assessment program.